listening to the Ready PDM Network.
Hello, Ready Product Radio Heads. This episode brings you part 2 of our product owner versus product manager topic with Steve Johnson and Saeed Khan, following up their lighthearted debate with a more serious discussion of the relationship between these two critical roles. Ready Product Principle number 39 is about job titles and is borrowed from Robin S. Sharma. Leadership is not a title or a designation. It's about impact, influence, and inspiration. Enjoy the show.
So just to get us started, I know when I started in my career as a product manager, probably the most frequent phrase people would use to describe the role to me is, "Hey, Alan, you get to be CEO of the product. You'll be able to make all the decisions, take all the credit, take all the blame. It's basically like running your own business." Maybe we can start there. And Steve Johnson, maybe talk to us about product managers and product owners. And so are they co-CEOs of the product now, or what? How has that evolved with this new role?
Okay. Well, going back historically, the creators of the various agile methods happily had their hearts in the right place. They said, we want to hear directly from the customer, and absent that, we want to have a representative of the customer sitting near us, answering our questions in real time. And that's what product owner was supposed to be. Meanwhile, product manager was supposed to be more of a business role. That's the one we refer to as, CEO of the product. But as Saeed implied earlier, we don't own P&L. I mean, it's very common that people contact me and say, how should I do a compensation plan? Shouldn't it be on P&L? And I'm like, oh, it totally should. That means you're going to allow the product manager to outsource development and reject contracts for excessive discounting. And they go, oh, whoa, not so fast there, Mr. Consultant Man. And it's like, well, they can't control the P&L if they can't control the profit and the loss, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think this whole idea of CEO of the product is misunderstood, right? Because people think the CEO controls everything, tells everybody what to do. And in reality, if you've ever been a CEO or you've been close to CEOs, you realize they have a lot of constraints. I mean, CEOs have to report to a board, right? They can't just do whatever they want. And they've got a leadership team who they have to deal with as well. They can't just boss everyone around, so to speak, right? You don't lead by telling people what to do. You lead by, truly leading. So I think when people think of this of the CEO of the product from a product management perspective, a lot of people think, hey, I'm the boss. I'll tell development what to do. I'll tell marketing what to do. I'll tell sales what to do. And really, you can be CEO by truly leading people forward.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the big challenges. And even if you don't have 100% control over everything, just because you're not CEO of the product, it doesn't mean you can't act like CEO of the product, right? So just because you're not in control of everything doesn't mean you can't act like you are and truly move things forward. Because people are looking for a leader. People expect the product manager to lead. And if you don't, well, guess what? They'll take it over for you. So I think there's merit to that, but I think people have to understand what it's really meant by CEO of the product.
So many cases where product managers come in and say, hey, I'm here to save the day. And in my first product management job, I came in and said, I hear things aren't going well. How can I help? And I really learned quite by accident to lead from the front instead of from the back. One of the metaphors I've been playing with that I'm starting to like, and it seems like here's a metaphor I'm starting to like, and that is the orchestra director, the music director of an orchestra. A conductor is a musician, but he may not be a master of any instrument. He probably plays an instrument, but he certainly doesn't play all instruments. And his real role is to, choose the music and decide which one is most likely to get crowds to come out, and then lead the practices to make sure everybody's, up to speed. But his real job on stage is to keep everybody in sync. And rather than, for what it's worth, I feel like that's a better metaphor, that we're not trying to do marketing's job or sales' job or development's job. We're trying to make sure they're all synchronized, that they're that one of them's not louder than the other, and that one of them isn't ahead of the other, like salespeople selling stuff before we've built it. The orchestra leader metaphor really strikes me as one that seems to be more sympathetic to the kinds of product management roles I've had in my career.
So Neeha, I wanted to throw it over to you because you're fairly new in your career. What's been your experience in terms of the titles product manager and product owner? Do you see them combined in a single individual, or are they usually separate? What have you seen?
Well, it's actually my second role, so very fresh perspective.
Woohoo!
But I think for me, it's really been correlated to the size of the company. So my first startup was super small, very young startup. So in that sense, it was very combined. And I think I was very close to sales and marketing because it was a matter of survival of the company. And it was all about validation and do we even build this product, and, much more fitment to the market and to the customer. Voice of customer was actually product managers sitting in front of the customer, even pitching, even doing sales. So that was my experience at that stage. But what I sort of realized now, and that's one of the reasons why I sort of empathize with what Steve was saying with regards to the separation of the role. With this current role, the size of the company is larger, and it's so hard sometimes to manage all three perspectives, with development, sales, marketing, and just having that larger picture, because sometimes just development in itself can really be overwhelming, and you're so in the weeds to move the team along and those Jira tickets and the skill that it takes to, I think, kind of support a development team along is sometimes a very different skill than understanding market requirements and really like, where is this product going over the next couple of years? And I'm not really sure that the jack of all, master of none profile is a great place. I think it comes with the territory, but somewhere product managers do need that business side. And I think as the organization grows, it's really hard to do both, like be really in the weeds with development, but also really have this open perspective of what's going on in the marketplace and where's the industry going. So that's the reason why I see that separation as the size of the company sort of grows. And I'm certainly struggling with that as well, to constantly, because I'm not in front of the customer. So what are my sources of getting that insight and to ensure that I, in my limited capacity without much control, am steering my product in the right place, and I'm also making the right decisions. So yeah.
Cool. Steve or Saeed, any comments on that?
Yeah, actually, let me make a comment. So actually, you brought up a good point. I think it's a point worth clarifying, which is that, this product manager versus product owner debate is not about individual versus individual, right? It's about function, product management and product owners. And so thought that there should be one individual who does everything. In fact, over the years, I've advocated the complete opposite. And it's really weird when you look at organizations, right? When you look at sales, you'll have inside sales, you'll have outside sales, you might have corporate sales, you'll have biz dev people, you'll have, other people in sales, all these different roles, right? Same thing in marketing, multiple different roles in marketing. In development, multiple different roles in development. You have architects and developers and back-end guys, and you'll have QA and this and this and this. And then you look at product management, we've got a couple of product managers. Like there's no differentiation of the roles. True. And so that's been a fundamental flaw from day one, to be perfectly honest, in technology product management, which is that there's very little differentiation of the roles. So when you think about what's needed, absolutely. In fact, you need more than just even two roles, because there's multiple different aspects to how you need to run the business, right? The business of the product. And so this issue of product owner, I think the engineering side of it makes sense because yes, engineers need some help or whatever. But this idea of this title, and first of all, when we say product owner, I always tell people there's no such thing as a product owner. It's agile product owner, because this thing is tied to agile. Right. If you went to a brand new development methodology and it didn't need product owners, what would you do with all those people, right? Would you throw them away? Would you give them a new title? So the whole point is simply this: product management as a whole, its job is product success. One of the areas to focus on is engineering. And I think engineering needs to step up and not, just push everything up to the product management group. But you do that. But you do that by differentiating roles, not by creating brand new titles and new job functions that make no sense. And then you have product owner and product manager. Really, the product owner doesn't really own anything. If you're in an enterprise, the business owns it, not the product owner. If you're in a software company, nobody really owns it. Product management has certain responsibilities. So I think the notion of having a focus on engineering is good, but the title and the way it's actually kind of dogmatically employed in Agile is not.
Steve, any thoughts on that?
Well, I find I'm reluctantly agreeing with everything Saeed said.
That's boring.
Yeah.
Checks in the mail, Steve.
Yeah,
I got you guys on here because you disagree. What's going on here?
But I hadn't really thought about the fact that all the other departments have these different specialties. And we tend to just say, well, in product management, we have the product manager. What is the expertise necessary to fulfill this role? Because some of the things that we need to do are business things: financial forecasting, revenue projecting, market sensing, defining what markets we're going after. Some of the things that we do are more technology oriented, and that's the agile product owner role. But that used to be called something else, I suppose, like a technical product manager was a title we saw in years past. And we also need to support our marketing and sales efforts, which is why many organizations have now created product marketing managers whose role is to take the product to market and support the marketing and sales efforts. But interestingly, it seems to me, in most of the organizations I encounter, the product marketing people are marketing people without product. They don't know the product, which makes it very difficult for them to do product marketing.
It's a bad title.
Yeah, it's interesting that you have that, and it's really weird. And I've seen that in companies where product marketing, it was like little tiny lowercase product, huge M marketing.
Right.
And product management was huge product, capital letters product, and very little of the management. And it makes no sense. And when you end up in a situation like that, you're bound to fail, because product management and product marketing are, I say, they're two sides of the same coin. They both have the same objectives, which is product success, and they look at the world in very similar ways, but their focus is different. But they need to be working together. And in the same way as a technical product manager, if you think a product owner is this role, where are they part of engineering? How are they getting the information that they're going to convey? They're not. If they're engineering, they're part of product management. And so these roles have to work together and then move forward together. And if you think of it that way, then you don't have to think about, oh, we've got all these different people in all these different places. You put them all under one kind of unit in the company, or one silo, if you want. Well, silo is a bad term, but you put them into one place, and they coordinate with each other, and they focus in the areas they need to focus, and then they move forward together. And that way, in a way, your orchestra and orchestra leader analogy works really well, Steve, because they're conducting the different actions they have in coordination, and no one's getting too far ahead or falling too far behind.
Absolutely.
So let me throw another one out, guys. So the other title, Steve was mentioning titles of days gone by. The other title we used to have was business analyst. So I'd be interested to hear all three of your perspectives on whether you think an agile product owner is playing the role that, let's say, a business analyst would play in a waterfall type of scenario. I don't know who wants to start with that one. Steve, maybe you?
Sure. I think that what's happened with the waterfall to agile shift is so many organizations have said, there's a bunch of new titles here with Scrum. So we don't have those, but what's the best parallel? And in some cases they went, look, product manager, product owner, product. So let's make all the product managers product owners. But in other companies, they looked at it, and I think more realistically looked at it and said, the things that we're asking product owners to do are a lot closer to business analyst work. Although, strangely, I have encountered companies that have both business analysts and product owners, which kind of confuses me. But in most of my consulting work, dealing with roles and responsibilities is the untapped market. I mean, it seems like very few companies have clarity on roles and responsibilities. And in a traditional, public training venue, they can't really say, well, here's how your company should organize your titles, and this is how your company should organize the titles. So nobody really gives you really strong advice on title. I see that the way product owner has been implemented in most companies is more like business analyst than it is like product manager.
Saeed, what are your thoughts there?
So I think we have to make a distinction between software companies, ISVs, and then enterprises. So in enterprises, business analyst is traditional title. They were the voice of the business into IT, and they understood what was needed, and then that was the communication path for IT to get what they needed. And I've seen business analysts turn into essentially product owners, and that makes sense in many ways. Although the irony of things is that, in the pre-agile days, I found that development groups, they didn't need as much hand-holding. I have this tongue-in-cheek definition of agile, which is a development methodology that replaces long-term planning with short-term thinking. But it's kind of true. Like I've witnessed it in companies that went agile, and then all of a sudden the engineers were like, well, we don't really know anything. We can't move forward until someone tells us exactly what to do, or this word in this story doesn't make sense. Can someone clarify it for me? And it's really, really bizarre because that wasn't the case pre-agile. And so now these business analysts are not just helping them explain the business, but they're, helping them whiteboard designs and things like that. So I think that's a problem. The needle has shifted way too far on one side from a development perspective, and development needs to come back and kind of go, we're part of the business. We need to understand the business. We can't just be handheld throughout. And then the other side of it is...
Sorry, but let me jump in before you move to your next point.
Sure.
There's also a hiring profile there. I mean, I get all pissy about salespeople not knowing the product, but that's the salespeople they hired. So clearly the VP of sales says, well, our salespeople don't need to know anything. They just need to know how to drive a car and discount. To your point about development, maybe that's the hiring profile. I believe that developing products is more art than science. And yet so many people I talk to, like in the head of finance, think that developing software is factory work. So back to you, Saeed.
No, I mean, I was going to say that the other side of it is in ISVs, right? People they understand what to do to build product, but then when the same kind of mindset happens in Agile where, unless we're told exactly, unless there's a story in Jira that tells me I'm supposed to do something, I'm not going to do it. And it's kind of stupid, to be perfectly honest, because all of a sudden people are just giving up responsibility and causing problems. And I'll tell you one story which just blew my mind. It was in a software company. They had the software and they released it. And then the very first day, someone downloaded it and the license keys wouldn't work. And it's like, hello, what happened? And then it turned out that since there was no story in Jira that makes sure license keys work, QA didn't test the license keys. And so, it didn't work. And the response from QA was, well, we're going to fix it. It's like, well, that was your job before we shipped the software, not after. This, hey, it wasn't in Jira. Nobody told us we're supposed to test it, or nobody told us we had to think about it. Makes no sense. And I think as much as Agile has helped development practices move forward and be more nimble and responsive, I think development shops need to step up and say, I need to think about the bigger picture. Someone has to explain to engineering that license keys are how the company makes money and pays their salary. These things should not be just ignored because nobody told them they had to do it.
Neeha, any thoughts from you on the business analyst versus product owner? Did you have business analysts at your startup or no?
Not in my previous startup, but
Okay.
we certainly do where I work now.
Okay.
And I agree, our roles are pretty confusing, but I absolutely do believe that I think the best products are built when the developers are very equipped and knowledgeable about the product. As in, this entire role separation of business analysts or product owners, whoever it is, are the gatekeepers of knowledge about product or industry or functionality is something that I don't agree with, because I've personally seen, early stage products being built, kind of really exciting process when developers are also putting on their product hat, if you will, because we're all trying to solve a problem, but there may be this really great perspective that the developer may be able to suggest, which say a business analyst or other roles may not be able to come up with. So I see it more of as a confluence, and especially with regards to customer empathy or understanding, which feature is it or what is that specific value that product is a person is willing to pay for. If a developer, especially the technical team, can empathize with that, I think better products are built. My previous startup, it was just a 2-person team. Actually, it was just just me and a developer, and salespeople. We're in the field, and even when we're building internal software, just even going to the warehouse, actually, taking the dev team there and doing some development there too. So you're just really close to what's going on in the field was a huge emphasis, and I don't think I could have done that role where I created this 50-page BRD, which was absolutely perfect with no loopholes or gaps, and just handed it over. And I don't think we could have built anything meaningful in that way.
Yeah,
So,
Who was asking you to do that?
sorry, what was that?
I'm just curious.
Who's asking?
That's Saeed. I'm just curious who was asking you to do that.
The 50-page BRD?
Yeah.
Well, that's how we used to do it in banks. So
I see. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you're comparing
not
banks to a startup.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
and-
no. I was referring to sort of my 2 startup experiences primarily, but with regards to the business analyst role, typically the expectation is documentation, right? Like the first thing that comes to my mind when I think of a BA is document, your business models, your data models, your process models, document everything and then hand it over. It's not really a communication hub, and it's not really a collaborative really role. It's like use your brain to download as much of the information as possible and give us a document which the developers can digest and regurgitate through software. So
and usually put them into a SharePoint repository. And Steve, remind us what SharePoint does, or what SharePoint's all about. It's where documents go to.
Yeah, it's where documents go to die.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Well, listen, guys, this has been very good. We're probably running up on time. So, final thoughts. Let's just go around the table. Steve, if you're let's say you're a VP of product management, you're in an organization that has both product owners and product managers. What would your advice be in terms of delineation of the role, making sure they can play together, etc.?
Well, they certainly need to be joined at the hip.
Okay.
That what I find is that product managers spend more of their time out of the office and product owners spend more time in the office. Clear delineation of roles is critical, and clear points of communication is critical. As I work with teams, I'm always surprised that the individuals who do the jobs aren't clear on what it is that is their responsibility.
Awesome.
So getting clarity on roles and responsibilities is key.
Awesome. Saeed, final thoughts.
Yeah, so I would say I would agree with Steve. I would recommend.
Stop agreeing.
I would recommend that if you do have product managers and product owners, they should be part of the same organization, right? I mean, product owners can spend more time with engineering. That's fine. Product managers should not avoid engineering if you have those 2 different roles, but they should be part of the same organization, because the fundamental goal of both of them is to make the product successful, and you have to build it successfully, you have to market it successfully, you have to sell it successfully, etc. So I think that's one of the key recommendations. And then secondly, stop calling them product owners. Minimum, call them agile product owners, or call them something else, because they really don't own the product. And so it just confuses the hell out of
What about air quotes? If we use air quotes every time, Saeed, does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. Air quotes will work.
Okay. Thank you, Saeed. So Neeha, any final comments on the 2 roles?
I just think that, I agree. I think it's about achieving product success. So for me, I just think about what are the levers that I need in an organization in order to push my agenda product forward. And I just want to do whatever it takes, people, process, technology, throwing the right word around, learning what it takes. And it's just about, for me right now, it feels like it's just about every organization is different with regards to its stage and chaos. So within that chaos, to just figure out what is it that I can sort of play around with to push the product forward. So that's
Nice.
all I got. Yeah.
Cool. No, that's good. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. This has been awesome. So this has been a 2-part discussion on product ownership versus product management. First part being modeled after the CBC radio show, The Debaters, a little more humorous look, and then secondly, this longer form, more serious discussion of the topic. So thank you all 3, and I'll talk to you at the next episode.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Ready Product Radio, part of the Ready PDM network. This is when most podcasters ask you to leave a review on iTunes if you like the show. My only request is if you found the show entertaining, inspiring, or informative, please share it with a colleague or friend who may feel the same way. Also, note that the views expressed in this episode do not necessarily reflect my views or the views of the Ready PDM network. If you want yourself or your product to be ready, then keep your eyes on your markets, your ears to your customers, your mind on their experiences, both good and bad, and finally, keep your hearts in your products. Until next time, thank you for listening. You can contact us on Twitter at Ready Product Radio. That's RDYPRODUCTRADIO. And on the web at www.readyproductradio.com.
Gee, mate, what do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.